Hello. Hi. Oh, geez. I feel like I'm already having issues. What's up? Hello. Can you guys see me? Can you hear me? Hello, hello. Hi. Hi. Today is Monday. Happy Monday. Are we good? Can you guys see me and hear me? I'm concerned. Why aren't you guys writing me back fast enough? Why? Why? Yes and yes. Yeah, imagine if Mackenzie was texting you all day long like that, babies. Oh, babe, hello. Hi. Hi. Hola. We're back. We're back. Um, okay, I got the page number. I mean, that's exactly what it would be like if that was Mackenzie texting you. It would be just like that. Me being up here being like, hi, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you see me? Can you see me? Why isn't it fast enough? Why aren't you typing fast enough? Hello. Oh, okay. Thank you, Austin. I'll check it out. Hi, Austin. 3 kissies for you. Do you want me to spam you, babelet? No, I can spam you guys. For real. I really could. But hi, welcome back. Sorry, I couldn't go live yesterday. It was a day. It was a day. I'm trying to set up new mic, new camera, so that's a whole nother thing. But I hope you guys had a good weekend. And, I'm a little embarrassed because I looked into it and I was thinking, the whole start conversation with the Mackenzie text last time. Apparently, I was wrong, which I'm not surprised about. But I think when she was referring to start, I think I feel dumb. I think she was talking about someone in the comments was like, Melly. She's talking about her outfit. And I was like, oh. And I guess like start means like the base of an outfit. I don't know. I think I like my definition better here that we said what we thought I thought it was something else. But nonetheless, I don't know. I don't know. But that's what somebody left in the comments, and I was like, okay, I see. Sometimes I'm a little late to respond to the comments, but I do try to hop in there. Anyways, we are getting close to finishing 2020 with the Mackenzie text. I don't know that we can do it today just because they're a little psycho on how they text. I don't know how much there is in the next 2 months, but we'll try. We can try, right? Babelets, like that's all we can do in life is just try our best. That's it. That's all we can do. Anyways, enough of me preaching up here. Let's get started on the text messages. Please hit that like button, do all the YouTube things, help your girl out. Small channel, we're getting there. I don't make it. People are like, why don't you make it bigger? I can't make it bigger because pause. I can't make it bigger because I do vertical streams. So it is what it is. We're here for the vibes too. So just hit that like button, do all them things. You know what I mean? And thank you for being here. Let's get started. I'm here for all of it. Okay, so we left off on they were going to bed. This is November 3rd. He says, good night, babe. Love you. The next morning, 11/4 at 7:27 a.m., she says, hi, babe. And he says, good morning, babe. She says, want to hang before I go to actual school? She says, because I work. And he says, yeah. How you doing today, babe? And she says, okay, bet. She says, might have to work. I'm still coming over though. He says, wait, what did she say? Might have to work, Karina. She says, I'm still coming over though. And Dom says, I seen what she said about AJ. I just leave it alone because problems work themselves out and it's really not your problem, Okay, so it looks like their friends are having drama. She sends a screenshot of a Snapchat. He says, who is that? She says, Marina. Or I'm sorry, Karina. Posted it. She did a typo. He says, LOL. I just leave it alone. If it's not affecting you. And she says, okay, I will. And then she says, I just told her to delete it. And Dom says, yeah, don't be rude to anyone or threaten anyone. She says, okay, babe, I won't. She sends a kissy face. Blink emoji text. So then she's sending cup pong. She says, play. He says, I was shaving. So now they're playing cup pong on their phones. I've never played that, but I guess I'll look into it tonight. She says, "Let me see your face." And then she's playing again cup pong. About to go to work, she says. He says, "I'll send pics soon. I just got out of the shower." She sends a TikTok, I think, of their friend. And then Dom says, "They break up?" Question mark. Mackenzie says, "I don't know. I hope." She says, "At work." He says, "That would be wild." Then at 5:22, she says, "Hey, I'm coming over at 7." And he says, "Okay." She says, "On the way, but my mom forgot my whole outfit, so I might be late." He says, "You have a little time." She says, "I'm gonna get your mom flowers. Will she want that, babe?" And Dom says, now they're playing cup pong again. They're still playing cup pong. I'm just going through these messages. She says, okay, so this is at, so they must have hung out. And then this is at 11:15. She says, "This is for real effed. Like, why? You know what else is effed?" And Dom says, "How did it even come off?" She says, "It's been broke, just glued on. And my mom is just being annoying AF." And he says, "Oh, okay." She says, "And rude." She says, "FaceTime me in 1 second." He says, "Okay." She says, "My hand looks so effing bad. I for real can't stand my mom. She's been so crazy lately," is what Mackenzie said. Interesting. She's complaining about her nail being broke. This is what she's talking about, her nail being broke. And her mom's being crazy, and I just wonder what kind of crazy, because we have questions here. And we need answers. Hi, hi, hi. Oh, did I miss something? Let me go back. I was just checking in with you guys to make sure you are behaving. Crystal, thank you, love. Thank you, Babelet. She sends 5 gifted memberships. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Welcome, new members. Welcome. Thank you, Crystal. I appreciate you. Just saw it because I was reading. You both crazy girl. Me? I'm crazy? Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I won't let it kick it. Thank you, Crystal. Appreciate you, Babelet. And welcome on new members. Okay. Let's see. So yeah, I want to know, what do you mean about Natalie Shirilla being crazy? Anyways, he says, "What nail is it?" She says, "What do you mean, what nail? I'm about to flip. F my life. I don't even want to go to school tomorrow. I just want to stay home and sleep. And nice job FaceTiming me." And she says, "Okay." And he says, "I fell asleep, babe, at 6:30 a.m. the next day." She says, "OMG, I for real hate my life. This house is ass. Like, WTF. Like, my mom just knows how to make me hate my life and ruin my whole day. Like, as soon as I'm up, as soon as I'm 17, 18, I'm getting the F away from here." I have questiones. Do you know what I mean? Why does she hate her home life so much? Did she have physical altercations with her mom? Yeah. I'm starting to think, no, I don't know if physical, hey, Wim, but something was going on. Susan's making me laugh. She does it before that. Yeah. You know what? I don't know, but something doesn't seem right. Okay. So she says, "I'm out. I'm dipping as soon as I'm 17, 18." Dom says, "Motivation." She says, "Right. But I didn't go to Polaris. I'm just in a bad mood. I just want to come to you, babe. Like, I need new eyelashes, but I don't want to be near my mom." He says, "Why didn't you go to Polaris?" Or Polaris. I don't know how you say it. She says, "I'm in a really sad mood. I can still go. I'll be late. I'm just not feeling it right now." He says, "You can come here if you want. I'll take you to school." She says, "But I really don't want to go, babe. I don't want my mom to come get me." She says, "So you really think I should?" Question mark, question mark, question mark. He says, "What?" And she says, "What happened?" He says, "My phone died." She says, "Oh, well, I'm gonna put my comfy clothes on. What are you doing now?" "Still chilling." He says, "Yeah, I'm about to get up and go to the bathroom." She says, "Bet. I'm excited to see you and go to breakfast, babe. He says, are you getting a ride or do you want me to pick you up? She says, if you could pick me up, it would work better. He says, okay. She says, let me know when you're about to leave your house. He says, I'm still on the toilet. Okay, why is this like a staple in their conversation, you guys? I'm sorry, TMI, but it's not me, it's them. I swear. The same mom that lied about the dentist pain. Yeah, I don't know. It's a thing being, hey, it's a thing being in the toilet. I don't know. Anyways, let's move on. TMI. He says, I'm still on the toilet. And she says, I know, babe. He sends a screenshot of the messages and he says, I'm dead. She says, LOL. What are you doing now? He says, looking for my notebook. She says, oh, okay. He says, notebooks, actually. She said, the cat's wildin' right now. And he says, nice. She says, when you scoopin', I still need to go to actual school. He says, I can't find my notebooks. She says, oh shit. Did you look under your bed and shit? Maybe those also, maybe those also in the attic. Ask Angelo. He says, so now my notebooks and rig are gone. She says, I'm sorry, babe. I'll help you look. He says, nah. I lost $470 because of the rig. And now I lost priceless information. She says, babe, it's not lost. He says, okay, sure. She says, like, I will go into the attic and look at your school shit. Maybe it's mixed with that. And you can't be mad at me. I was just trying to help you. Everyone was telling me what to do. It wasn't like I choose to do anything. I just wanted you to be safe. He says, it's a notebook. She says, with shit in it. He says, with information from books and from myself. Like all my study is in there. She says, babe, it's in your house somewhere. Like I can go in the attic. Are you seriously mad at me for this? I don't know what they're referring to here. So there must be something that's not in these texts. Something about his stuff being in the attic. She says, you're like, duh. Because she just said that. Okay, chill out. She says, are you seriously mad at me for this? He says, well, yeah, I'm mad. I got sweaty doing all of this. Now I don't know if I should take a shower. And I made you put my notebooks and vapes with the other shit. She says, Dom, I didn't put anything anywhere. I gave it to your mom and Angelo. He says, whatever. I'm about to take a hot shower. She says, like, I'm sorry. I feel bad and I want to help you find it, babe. Like we can look all afternoon. I don't work. He says, I found it, but now everything is a mess and I have to clean it. Rolling my eyes. She says, oh shit. Where was it, babe? He says, with all the other illegal things that would have gotten in trouble for because my vape papers were there with all my information. Did the police come by or something? Because he's acting like something's going on. He says, with all my other illegal things. See what I mean, guys? See what I mean? I will search your whole house. I think it's Dom prolonging her back. They tell us when the food goes in and when it comes out. Huh? Oh, what? Asane's getting me food. He said his crap is in there. Yeah. I bet he's freaking over nothing. I know he was. Okay, so he says, with all the other legal things I would have gotten in trouble for because my vape papers were there with all my information. She says, oh, well, I'm happy you found it, babe. He says, yeah, now I can look through it. She says, good. I'm about to drive alone to Giant Eagle. Then she says, babe. He says, what? She said, I just drove myself to Giant Eagle. He says, nice. She says, question mark, babe, can you answer? He says, what's up? He says, phone's on 1%. I'm starting to think that's a lie. I don't believe that his phone is on 1%. No, I do not. And then she said, maybe. She said, never mind. I was trying to show you something. So we're not going to breakfast anymore either. She says, yeah, I'll just make food, I guess. He says, okay. She says, really? He says, what? She says, why would you just say, okay, babe? Like, I'm not mad. He says, because I'm mad. She says, well, you don't got to be mean to me, babe. I'm always here for you. He says, I was just being mean. I wasn't being mean. I just said, okay. She said, well, it makes me feel like you are mad at me, babe. He says, I don't know. She says, I love you, babe. He says, love you too. Then she says, I want my little happy babe. And if you want to be just left alone for a little bit, let me know and just hit me up in like 30 minutes. No, Mackenzie, I think he needs more than 30 minutes. Like he needs like 30 months. You know what I mean? He's like, why? Never mind. And she says, okay, babelet, what are you doing then? He says, when? She says, now. LOL. He says, I'm doing, I don't know what that means. Is that a typo? He says, I'm doing Windhoff. She says, oh, makes sense. Hit me up after. Babe, are you mad at me or something? And he says, I muted people I was texting while I do Wim Hof, but then I forget to unmute everyone. What the hell is that? Wim Hof. And then he says, then I forget to unmute everyone. I seen this thing on Instagram and it really made me think. Life is what you make it, said Dom. It's like a video game. Treat life like you're your own game. She says, send me the post. I'm at school now, about to cheat on a test. He says, it wasn't a post that said that. It was just something where a dude looked lame AF. She says, oh, LMAO. He says, LOL. She says, babe, text me, babe. Sad face. He says, what's up? She says, I want to talk to you and you're just not texting me at all. Sad face. Okay, she says. And he says, okay. She says, WTF is wrong with you? 4 question marks. And he says, what is wrong with you? She says, nothing. I'm just trying to talk and you're being mean. He says, well, you got mad I didn't answer for 15 minutes. She said, not mad at all. He says, like I'm doing shit. Okay. And she says, I just want to talk to you a little bit. And I'm sad you're not answering. We shouldn't get mad. You can try to make me feel better. I can't. I want to lose my shit over Mackenzie. For real. Oh my gosh. What? Guru Dom. He needs a phone constantly charged to sell, wouldn't you think? True. Mallory's like 30 minutes. Hey, Brenda. Literally, where did that come from? She pulls shit out of the air. You guys, this whole thing where like he doesn't text her back right away drives me literally, it's driving me insane lately. Like, Crease, like she's annoying. True. She says, I'm sad you're not answering. You should try to make me feel better. I don't want to fight. She doesn't want to fight, but she starts these damn fights. Anyways, she says, I don't want to fight. I just want to see you. He says, okay. Don't get mad sad when I don't answer for 15 minutes, he says. She says, babe, be nice to me right now. And he says, what? She says, be nice to me. I'm your little babe. Oh, Lord, I can't anymore. I need a drink already. That's what I said, not Mackenzie. She says, I'm your little babe. Little babe. Little babelets. Who's going to be my little babe? I don't know why that's funny to me. Anyways. Okay, so she says, I'm your little babe. And can I come over after school? He says, not today. She says, damn, what are you doing then, babe? I feel like you're being distant, but you want to hang later? He says, I've been cleaning and I've been mad AF. Oh, Lord. She says, oh, I'm sorry, babe. I didn't think you were anymore. He said, I seen Kristen's Instagram story. Shit pissed me the F off. And Mackenzie says, what one? She says, oh, can she even vote? Did she even vote? And Dom says, bruh, I don't know. All I know is she's effing our word. Like, I'm honestly done trying to be cool with them. She says, oh, for real? I feel like you should think that out more when you're not as mad, you know? But I get why it's annoying. And he says, not like for real. I'm done trying to be cool with the bitch. I don't think I've had a good interaction with her even. Sheen doesn't like her. Blair doesn't like her. AJ doesn't like her. Like she's way too ignorant. I could actually hit her. Wow. That's a little aggressive, Dom. Like he's saying he can actually hit her friend. Um What? I'm sorry. That makes me uncomfortable. Anyways, he says I could actually hit her. I wouldn't even hit Lana or Nikki. What? That's weird. But I'd bitch slap the F out of her, no cap. This type of aggression is like, does this go on behind closed doors? Like, you know what I mean? I ain't pointing any fingers. I'm not victim blaming. So don't come into the comments and be like, oh my God, Melly, you're so mean. I'm just saying how he's acting right now is a reflection of like, does he do this in another relationship or in other instances? Just point blank, period. Maybe he forgot the on. Oh, like hit on. Mandy's like, he's kind of gross, to be honest. I don't know. I just don't like that. Anyways, he says, but I bitch slapped the F out of her, no cap. She says, babe, you can't let an ignorant bitch get to you. He says, I know, I'm not. She says, I agree with you 1000%. He says, that's why I unfollowed her. She says, when all the boys don't F with her, there has to be an issue. And Dom says, I'm not going to talk to her or listen to her again. She says, what about Kyle, though? Dom says, if Kyle hits me up to chill and wants to bring her, I'll just tell him we can't chill. And Mackenzie says, oh, wow. Okay, babe, I support it. He says, yeah, nah, I'm done. She says, I feel like she does it to be annoying at this point. Dom says, yeah, for real. Like she's for real so dumb. Mackenzie says, school's about to be over. I'm about to get my nails done today. I think too with my friend. And then Dom says, nice. She says, chilling with Blair. He says, and what? She says, just asking. LOL. I drove past. I'm about to get Starbucks. He says, nice. She said, babe, try to have a convo. He says, I've been hella mad. She says, I know, babe, but I don't know why you can't talk to me. I thought you were done because Blair is over, but I don't know what to get. She says, for my nails. And my friend asking for cards. He says, who? She says, Marissa, and you can answer to the other things too. Oh my God. He says, I just been mad and I unadded you on Snap because I got mad. He's mad over whatever the Kristen girl posted. And then him and Mackenzie unfollow each other and unadd each other like every 5 seconds. I can't keep up anymore. He says, I unadded you on Snap because I got mad. She says, wow. She says, I love how when I do nothing wrong at all, I just get that. Did you add me back? Like, I understand you blocking me if I was being a bitch or something, but I literally did nothing. And also, I've been trying to get you to answer my message about nails for a while. OMG. He says, I'll add. He says, you back. I got mad because you posed freshie liking your photos. Oh, so somebody, I don't know who that is, freshie. He got mad because some dude was liking Mackenzie's pics, yo. Someone was liking on the IG. I don't know who would be liking, but he's like, I got mad because post side freshie liking your photos. He says, I unfollowed that B ass N word. She says, I can block him or unfollow him if you want, babe. Babe, please tell me what nails I should get. I really need to know. First of all, who's the guy liking your pics? Second of all, stop asking your boyfriend about nails. Anyways, he says, it just made me mad. Get the green ones you've been wanting to. She said, babe, look at the options I sent you. I'd rather have you pick Babelet, and green's going to be too hard to match. Remember? He said, just get it. She says, well, babe, look at Insta. And then she says, babe, come on, babe. Snap. ASAP. Are you mad at me? And he says, no, why? She says, you're just not texting me. She says, I want to talk. I miss you. He says, what are you doing? She says, I just got my nails done. They're getting painted soon. Check Snap. I love them. He says, are they done? She says, about to be. They're painting them in like 1 sec. I'm excited. He says, send me pics. She says, bruh, babe, I just found out some funny ass shit. Are we hanging? Bruh, you never do that. Then she sends question marks. She says, you're sketching me out. Babe, babe. So then they must have hung out. The next morning, she says, hi, babe. Good morning. Want me to come over after Polaris? He says, good morning, babe. Yeah, you can, he says. She says, yay. He says, how is school today, babe? She says, babe, are you good? I couldn't answer. My phone was in jail for cause and died. What is she saying? King, LOL, King Von? Wait, let me go back. My phone was in jail for cause. King Von died. LOL, King Von. Oh, okay. So that's when he passed away. And Dom says, I know, shit gay. She says, like, holy shit. He blew up fast, then died. It's a sus AF. He says, right? That's a rapper. He says, I'm about to shower. He says, what should I wear today? She says, okay, babe, hit me up when you're out and wear black jeans. She says, and a white shirt. And Dom says, I don't know about that. She says, why? She says, twin with me. He says, because I don't want to wear that, babe. She says, fine, babe. Wear black sweats and a hoodie. He says, I was thinking about pants and a tank top. She says, oh, that's nice too. I already miss my babe. Emoji. He says, I miss you too, babe. She sends 3 kissy. He says 4 kissy. I'm throwing up. She says, where you at, babe? Just past your house. He says, nice, babe. She says, so you're not going to answer the question? LOL. Where you at, babe? He says, Jared's. She says, oh, forgot. He says, how was work, babe? You want to watch a movie when you're back? She says, yes, I'm off at 7. He sends an emoji. She says, Dom says, we can make popcorn. She says, yes, I'm for real so excited. You want pulp? He says, yeah. She says, leaving now, 1 or 2. He says, 2. She says, okay. You have a surprise for you. I have a surprise for you, she said. He said, bet, babe. How long till you're here? She says, I'm at Pulp right now. He said, nice. So now they're playing word hunt. More word hunt. I wonder if they're playing when they're with each other. More word hunt. Oh, now they're playing chess. Okay. So then the next day she says, morning, babe. He says, this is on 11/8. He says, good morning. She says, how you doing? He says, chilling. A little tired. She says, Megan's mom texted me. I'm worried AF now. What are you doing, babe? I work at 12. He says, damn, really? I was on the way to BS to eat breakfast. Then I was going to go work out with Sheen. She says, go do that. It sounds fun. I get off at 6. And he says, that's not too late. We can chill after. She says, right? I'm happy I don't close. Who you eating with? He says, B. She says, oh, that's fun, babe. What you getting? He says, he's making it. She says, oh, shit. A whole chef for babe. He says, Jared is coming too. LMAO. She says, LOL. He says, you lacking, babe. You should be making me breakfast. She says, babe, I literally would. He says, you need more practice first. He's like, but can you actually learn to cook? Hey, Bree with an E. She should worry about who? A mustache? Mackenzie? Joe says, I'm pissed. Dom's family made him out to be Saint Dom. Now seeing the real Dom. Not Joe Schmo coming for Dom. I saw someone's emoji said, these nails, they can play checkers. All I know is I don't want to play that. I want to. How's an app? Okay, maybe I will. Maybe I'll play with Cree. Give me a quickie. They both have more mood swings than a roller coaster. Okay, so should we all get into a group game of like Mellyverse, chess, and what's the other one? Word Hunt? That might be fun. We might have to get into that. He says, you need more practice first. He's like, you suck at cooking. But anyways, okay, so he says, you need more practice first. She says, I will be. I'm going to be a wifey and cook for you. A wifey? What the hell? You're not even 18 yet. What's she talking about? She wants to be a wifey. Yo, I'm down. What the hell? Oh Lord, says Asim. I'm gonna be a wifey and cook for you. He says, bet, babe. She sends a picture of something I can't see because she says, what you think? We kind of twin if you get them. Oh, they were shoes. More shoes. They look like Jordans. She says, pick. He says, get threes or the fives. She says, what ones? Threes, he said. She said, is that the second one? He said, the first. She said, the pink ones? And he sends a screenshot. She says, yeah, they only have size 3. He says, damn. Jordan F5 or Jordan 5s. I don't think the 8s would look good. She said, yeah, I agree. I'm just not going to get any, so I can't come at 6. He says, I mean, we all kind of just watching football. She says, well, I wanted to hang, babe, but it's okay, babe. I'll just go home. Okay, she says. He says, we can hang soon at 6:28 p.m. She says, I only have school on Tuesdays and Thursdays again. Don't open Snap till your friends leave. What is she sending on Snap? She says, LOL. Yuck. He says, what's up? She says, never mind. Okay, she says, I guess just hit me up when they leave. He says, I closed it real quick. They left. She says, okay, I'm gonna come over. I just got out the shower. He says, bet. She says, sideways face. I love you, babe. Oh, so they must have hung out. She must have gone over there. She says this sideways face, and then it jumps to the next morning. She says, I love you, babe. He says, I love you too. She says, what are you doing? She says, want to hang today? He says, we ballin' soon, babe. She says, we can hang after. She says, oh, okay. Send hooping video. He says, okay. She says, want to get Chinese? He says, when? She says, after you hoop. He says, okay. She says, who you balling with? He says, me, Blair, Angelo, Smeesh, then maybe Ryan Ward. She says, oh, that sounds so fun. He says, Trev probably balling too. Yes, it's going to be a lot. Oh, it's going to be lit. She said, just like summer. He says, LOL. He says, it's 72. She says, I'm with Kendra right now. LOL. He says, nice. Emoji. She says, I love you, babe. You so cute. Let's get Chinese after you hoop. I can pick it up. He says, okay. She says, when will you be done? He says, I don't know. We're going to start hooping at 1 or 1:30. She says, oh, so you're going to be busy all day or for a while? He says, not all day. The sun is only up till like 6. She says, okay, babe. I want to hang as soon as you can, though. He says, okay. She says, hit me up when you're done, please. Don't forget about me. Sad face. He says, I won't, babe. We still ballin'. She says, okay, that's what I thought, babe. I might go smoke with Lincoln. A quick boon. He says, nice. Be careful, cute babe. He says, we're going to be done soon, but we're going to smoke real quick. She says, how soon? Should I not go hang with her? He says, no, go hang, babe. She says, how soon? He says, we're done balling now. We're getting food. She said, Chinese? Me and you were supposed to get food. He says, no, I'm just getting a snack. My mom is making dinner. I can't buy Chinese. Let's do that another day. She says, whatever. Never mind. She says, I can buy it, but whatever. Like, how much longer am I going to have to wait, Dom? First of all, he's like, my mom is cooking dinner. And she's like, no, let's do Chinese. Like, just be nice about it. You know what I mean? And she's like, how much longer will I have to wait? Why do I have to wait for you to be done eating a snack? He says, babe, what do you mean? She says, like, you said you're done hooping. Why can't I come now? He says, because we went to get food real quick because we're still chilling. She says, you went to get food? I thought you were just getting a snack. He says, well, yeah, I didn't get a meal. She says, like, I didn't get a lot because I thought we were getting Chinese. He says, I thought we were going to, but my mom's making kebabs. She told us to go. Mackenzie says, your mom told us last night she was making those. Dom says, I forgot, babe. She said, now I didn't eat and I don't like kebabs. Okay, cool. She says, I guess I waited for nothing. Then she says, wow. He says, eat something else, babe. It's only 6. It's not like you're going to starve, babe. She says, so we're not hanging? Cool. I love waiting for nothing, especially when I work and can only have a couple free days. And the fact that you're being dry and bad at replying right now, too. SMH. He says, no, we can, babe. What do you mean? She says, OMG, you really did what I thought you were going to do. OMG. Then you say nothing. Honestly, babe, I'm about to just not hang with you today if you're going to be like this. I can just tell if I come over, I'm gonna get like 1/8 of your attention. I can't even get any of it right now. He says, I'm not trying to reply bad, to be honest. I don't feel that good. But if you want to chill in a little, we can. She says, how long is a little? 3 hours? She says, I don't know why you do this to me. Now it's late AF and I'm going to be tired. And you're going to wonder why I'm tired. Probably because I've been waiting on you all day. He says, it's only 6, babe. You say I can chill with my friends, but then get mad, babe. She says, I'm not mad. I'm mad that you're dragging it out. Like after you guys hooped, you could have let me over, but you didn't. You had to drag it on for no reason. Long AF. WTF? Question mark, question mark. You're there, but you can't pick up the phone. You're literally making me so mad. He says, well, we're chilling, babe. She says, I don't care at all. You could have been done after you bawled for 30 hours. But no, you had to smoke and hang and get food when you were supposed to get food with me. He says, okay, so what's wrong with that, babe? We do that every day. She says, what's wrong with it is that I've been not eating so I can eat hella Chinese. And you never told me we weren't going. He says, to be honest, I didn't think I'd be bawling that late earlier. Sheen's boss didn't let him off for a while. So we just played hella games. I honestly don't feel that good. She says, honestly, Sheen and Blair been pissing me off. He says, can we just not do this? She says, whatever, I'll just get Chinese alone. He says, we can still hang, babe. I don't know why you're being like this. She says, when, Dom, when are you going to let me over? Because you're still dragging it on for no reason. He says, give me a sec. I don't feel good. She says, let me come be there for you. I can take care of you. 3 question marks. 6 question marks. Like, I can come over now. He says, well, I don't know what I should do since I don't feel good. She says, what do you mean? What should I do? 5 question marks. And he says, I don't know what to do, babe. Just give me a sec. She says, do you actually feel sick? He says, kind of. She says, oh my God, this is so frustrating. He says, my stomach. I don't know if I'm actually sick. I'm just trying to figure it out. She says, Dom, let me know right now if you're letting me come. Like, I don't care if you're sick. Like, WTF is this? Dom, WTF is going on? And he says, Blair got me a Pedialyte and I'm drinking that. She says, bruh, why the F is Blair not leaving? He says, what do you mean? She says, you know what the F this is? I'm just not going to come over. So effing dumb. Sick, she said, question mark. So you can't answer me or let me over, but you can deal with Blair's annoying ass. Okay, she says. And then Dom responds with, bruh, I was about to let you over. You've been tweaking on me. She said, that's hard to believe. You can't answer the phone either. I'm annoyed because you're dry, giving me 0% info and not letting me come. And you leave me on red. And Dom says, I don't want to deal with this. She says, then tell Blair to leave so that I can come over. It's really not that hard. He says, now they're chilling with Angelo. I'm just in the living room with my mom. She says, F off. Are you going to let me come now or not? You really got to think that long? He says, I don't know. You're just being mean to me. She says, because you made me wait thinking we were eating. Say sorry. You know what? She says, is that a no? Question mark? Question mark? Okay, I'm done, she says. What the F is wrong with you? OMG, you did. OMG, OMG. If you ever say anything effing like this again, I will seriously be done. All I do is wait for you and do whatever the F you say. What a great way to spend a free day. He says, bruh, my phone died. She says, how the F am I supposed to know when you hang up mid-convo? Like, you really just did too wrong and turn red on right now. He says, because I couldn't hang up mid-convo. She says, turn on right now. He says, okay, I did. She says, no, you didn't. Never mind. So no hanging tonight? Dude, how can she literally act like this and then be like, no hanging tonight? I know. You guys, don't you feel like no fucking chill on? I know. Us saying so smelly. Stop. You're reading these too good. Yeah. Evil ass hoe, says Cree. Okay, dude. If this was my boyfriend, I'd be like, no, I don't want to hang tonight. You're going to be blocked. Like, do you know what I mean? And for reals, she keeps saying, it's interesting how she keeps saying, like, I'm done. And she's never really done. Like, be done. I don't know. I'm sick of hearing it. She says, so no hanging tonight? He says, why are you being so mean? She said, so I waited for nothing. Why do I have to repeat myself 40 times? OMG, answer the phone. He says, well, I don't want to let you come with you being mean. I'm not being mean. I'm hurt. How are you so blind? Like, I even got food. I couldn't even effing enjoy it because of this. When are you going to put me before your friends? They won't be here forever. I will. And he says, okay, let's just not chill. I'm going to throw up tonight, probably. So you're not letting me come? You would rather have Blair and Devin be there for you while you're sick instead of me? Like, why? You know how sad that makes me? And Dom says, they leaving. She says, oh my God, I'm so mad. I just wasted a whole free day just for waiting. So we're not chilling? He says, sure. She says, 5 question marks. What the F? You mean sure? 7 question marks. Oh my God, the disrespect, she says, just made it worse. For no reason. He says, I don't feel good. She says, what you did was just mean. Stop trying to take away from me being upset with you. It's not always my fault. This time it's yours and you need to own the F up to it. You would be mad too if I told you I was going to eat, then just not telling me till hours later we're not going. You know, I have to watch what I eat. I know we going to get a big meal. Wow, just like the old days again, huh? She says just like the old days, like, you know, when he ignores her, and it's really not the old days. It was just like a few months prior to. So like chill out with the old days. You know what I mean? She's acting like it was years ago. It was like 2 weeks ago. And then he says, "What do you mean?" She says, "Okay, hang up on me." Not only is she texting him like this, but she's freaking calling him, you guys. Just remember, we don't have the damn call log. Can you imagine seeing this many texts, getting this many texts, and then getting that many calls as well too? Dude, I would lose my shit. You know what I mean? Let's just be honest. Let's be honest. Who actually texts this long? I thought I texted a lot. 7 hours later. But Alsane's like, yeah, text me. I like toxicas. No wonder Alsane loves me. And FaceTiming him. Oh my God. And the FaceTime. Oh no. And the snap. Oh my. And then she walks over. She walks over, remember? She's like, whose car is in the driveway? Dude, this is crazy. This is literally. Yeah, Cree says I definitely text a lot. Yeah, but you're fun texting. You're not yelling at people and calling people mean names. You know what I mean? Like this is like abusive texting. She says, "Okay, hang up on me." She said, "You just did the wrong thing." And I'll remember this. Do you see what I'm saying? She's acting like someone just it's more like information dumps. Yeah, it is. Okay. Girl, there was a cop at his house. Girl knew there was a cop at his house before he knew. Dude. If someone was asking me like, "Who's in your driveway?" I would literally freak out. She says, "I'll remember this." He says, "That was by accident." "Okay, babe, I didn't really do anything. I just don't feel good." "I'm sorry, babe. I just couldn't deal with any of that. I feel sick." "So I guess we're not chilling tonight then," said Dom. She says, "You're the one who said you don't want to hang." He says, "I don't want to hang when you're mean, especially when I feel like shit." She says, "And? So what did you say? I guess we're not chilling. It's my fault. Why?" He says, "'Cause I hung up on accident and you just said, 'I'll remember that,' and didn't answer." She said, "Well, you didn't even call back. If it was an accident, you would call back. And I will remember this night." He says, "Why?" She says, "Because it really upset me." He says, "Look, you can come over. I started feeling a little better." She says, "Now?" He says, "Now I can actually sit up. Imma just hit a joint. I hope it helps." She questions her own message of now. He says, "Sure." She says, "Okay, I'm coming now." I feel bad for Dom if he's just like, "Ugh, I'm gonna lie and say I feel better to get her to shut the hell up." But also then I'm like, he could be lying. Like, I don't know. Let's just look at both sides. Maybe he does and feel good. We don't know. You know what I'm saying? What do you guys think? I think he turned informant. Who was that in the driveway in the 1997 Honda Accord with the .7 tin and a broken taillight? Tay, stop. Literally, I'm dying. I'm dead. Bet. Okay, she says, "Okay, I'm coming now." Suddenly he feels good and she's gonna go over. Okay, next morning. She says, "Morning, babe, 11:10." He says, she says, "You still feel sick?" He says, "I'm okay now." She says, "Can I come over after Polaris?" Sorry if I'm saying that wrong. I always say that. He says, Do you not have school?" She says, "I do, but I have work today too." Polaris, work, school. She says, "Turn red receipts on?" He says, "Yeah, you can come over, babe." She says, "Okay, bet." But why red keep coming off? Oh my god, dude, the controlling, I can't. I literally cannot. He says, "I don't turn it off." She says, "I'm not saying you do. I'm just saying turn it back on." He says, "Okay." She said, "Thanks, babe. And you want pulp or something?" And he's like, "If you want some." "Sorry, I was showering." She says, "On the way." "I'm just not gonna get pulp." Okay, so that was at 10 in the morning. He says, so then they're playing 8 ball. He sends 8 ball and then she says, "Babe." He says, "Play, babe." She's playing. She says, "I did, babe." Then they're playing 8 ball. 8 ball, more 8 ball. Okay, just in the middle of the day, they're just playing. Okay. She says, "Babe." Okay, play. They're playing again. She says, "I'm ass. What's a good biography to read?" He says, "What's a biography?" I'm sorry. Melly is exiting the conversation right now. um, I'm sorry. Toodles. Bye. Excuse me. um, okay. Before we move on, can I just make sure that everyone in the chat knows what a biography is? Can we just like clear this up? I don't want it to be a thing in our relationship later down the road. You know what I mean? Like, please just tell me if you effing know what a biography is. If you don't, just Google it, lie, and say that you do in the chat. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Mr. Read a Book. Mr. Enlightenment doesn't know what it means, dude. I literally cannot right now. No, that's the whole thing of it all. I'm glad you guys know me so well already. We could be dating because, like, that's what irks me. It's not that he doesn't know what the actual definition is the fact that he's always like, read a book to better yourself. Do this. Go help yourself with self-help books. But he doesn't even know what a biography is. I know what an autobiography is. Oh, same heavy material because he knows what a biography is. So Dom says, "What's a biography?" He sends a game. She says, "A book about someone by them." He said, "Discovering Westmore is dope." She said, "I read that. Should I do it anyway?" He says, "Rich Dad, Poor Dad." I don't think Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a biography. I think that's a self-help book. She says, okay, let's go back. I need to write this down. I'm kind of curious. Discovering Westmore is dope. Okay, Discovering Westmore. I don't know who Westmore is. He says, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. She says, it has to be really interesting. He says, I'll think of something. I don't know. Don't come for me. She says, I'm about to leave school. She says, babe, you haven't hit me up in a while. What should I eat? Fries or something? Okay, she says. He says, fries would be good. I'll send you Snap what I've been doing. One sec. She says, are you making more? And I'm going to come over at 7. He says, okay. He says, yeah, almost done. She says, okay, babe, bet. She says, coming. So she went over there at 7:09 p.m. Then at 11:55, she says, hi, babe. He says, when did you leave, babe? I woke up at 11:15 sitting up. She says, OMG, for real? You were out when I left. I left at like 11. He says, LOL. She says, OMG, babelet, why are you up? At 7:17. She says, why are you up? He says, right now? She says, yeah, it's early AF. LOL. You're usually answering. I'm on the way to Polaris. He says, I went back to bed at 10:12. How was Polaris, babe? She says, I'm Boone right now, babe. Want to hang after? He says, you're Boone? She says, yes. She says, want to hang now? He says, with who? I'm in, I don't know what he meant by that. She says, Kendra, LMAO, where? He says, Noro. He's in Noro. She says, what is that? LOL. He says, North Royalton, LMAO. She says, oh, why are you there? He says, take a guess. Why else would I go here? LOL. She says, want to scoop after? She says, I work today also. She says, I have no school tomorrow. He says, when do you work? She says, 3 to 7. She says, my bad. He says, oh, okay, yeah, we can chill. She says, yay. When are you going to be free, babe? He says, I'm going to be home soon. When you're home, can I come? He says, I might want to do a couple things. She said, could I just come? He says, maybe. She sends an emoji. She says, how far are you, or do you want to do other things? He says, I just got back, babe. He says, I don't know. I just don't want to be in a bad mood. She says, can I come? Are you okay, babe? She says. And he says, I haven't fully done anything. I have to everything. Read a couple pages, then stop. Start cleaning, then stop. I don't got a grasp. She says, I get what you mean, babe, but at the same time, you do work hard a lot of the time. We don't have to hang if you want to read and clean, but you can always just do any of that with me, and I can help clean whenever too, babe. Just ask. She says, babe. He says, it's not that. I just don't want to be flustered. Okay. It sounds like he has some, like, is it ADHD? Maybe. So can I come? Oh gosh, we have a troll in the chat says, pathetic to be picking on dead people. No one is picking on dead people. Like, these trolls are just out of control. Out of control. Um Oh, nameless. Thank you for sending Jules. Very nice of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Wait, who hired her? Y'all, you tell me what you guys think about that comment. Very interesting. Very interesting. I'm trying not to be petty, but I don't want you guys to break up with me, so I'll keep it nice. No, I can be petty. Don't get me started. Thanks. Oh, yeah, thank you. Okay, so he says, it's not that. I just don't want to be flustered. She says, "Well, it's up to you, babe. I just want to be with you. It's okay if you don't want to be alone for a little, though. I am just home laying right now on my phone." He says, "Okay." She says, "I just want my little babe to be happy. We could just hang out after work if that would be better for you. Maybe I can bring pulp." He says, "Come, little cute babe." She says, Dom says, "Maybe let me see what's good." She says, "Okay, babe, hit me up in a little." He says, "You can come over, babe." She says, "Okay, coming." Sabaro or Aunt Annie's? He says, "Sabaro sounds dank." She says, "That's what I was about to get." He says, "Was it good?" She says, I didn't get it yet. What are you doing?" She says, "Can I come over at 7?" And he says, "Yeah." She says, "Yay, coming soon." So that was she said, "Yay, coming soon" at 7:08. So they must have hung out because he says, "Good night, babe. I love you" at 1:28 a.m. Then at 6:30, he says, "I love you, babe. Have a good day at school tomorrow." She says, "Love you so much." He sends an emoji. She sends an emoji. She says, "What are you doing today? Should I get a spray tan today?" He says, "Just got out of the shower, about to link up with Jared." She says, "Should I, babe?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "What should I wear?" She says, "Okay, and can we hang out? But we can't do anything crazy. I'm going to be black or shit for like 8 hours. Black as shit. Wear like a set." Oh, because she's putting on self tanner. He says, "I'm just wearing polo outfit." She says, "Yes, do that. I want one of those sets bad AF." He says, "Already am." She says, "But after I get my tan, can I come over?" And he says, "Yeah, probably." She says, "I'm going to tan at 4, babe." And he says, "Okay, babe." She sends an emoji. She says, "I love you and miss you already." And he says, "Want to FaceTime?" She says, "Yes." He says, "Bet." He says, "I give you 3 kissy." Oh, they're being nice to each other right now. Oh God. I must Tay says, "I missed it too. I must mentally block them out, please. Just block them out. People hate us because they ain't us." No babelet. Dude, they're being nice to each other for like this thread. 3 kissies. Only 3 kissies for you. Okay, so he says, "I give you 3 kissies." She says, "I need more than 3." That's funny. She says that at 12:27 at nighttime. Then she says at 7:21, "Morning, babe." He says, "Good morning, babe." She says, "Wanna hang?" Polaris, "I'm about to leave." He says, "Bet, I'm just taking a dab." She says, "Yay, I'm coming in like 15. It will take me like," and he says, "Okay." She says, "Babe, wanna smoke a wood tonight if we hang?" "We don't have to though, babe." He says, "Yeah." "Can you get me Charlie subs?" She says, "Yeah." He says, "Bet." She says, "What size?" "And it might be cold. I have to go get it right now." He says, "Medium." She says, "I got large." He says, "I'll put it in the oven." She said, "Okay, bet." Dom says, "Okay, bet. Thanks, babe." She says, "LOL. See you soon." He says, "Okay, babelet." She says, "I love you." He says, "I love you too, babes." Then she says, "I'm waiting on my mom." He says, "Are you still at the mall?" She says, "What are you doing? I feel like you're just mad at me. Anything I say is making you mad." Jeez, how did they go from the subs? 7:14 p.m., 8:43. So she says, "What are you doing? I feel like you're just mad at me and saying anything I say is making you mad." "Okay, babe. I can leave if that's what you want. Like, please just tell me if you want me to leave." So she must have gone over there with the subs. And now they're hanging out, and this is what's happening. Oh, maybe it depends on the strain of weed if they're all kissy kissy. There's the babelet. McKissy back. Okay, so she says, "Please just tell me if you want me to leave." She says, "You're really stressing me out." He says, "That's up to you, babe." She said, "How is it up to me? I'm asking you because you're the one in a bad mood, and I feel like you're just stressing me out." He says, "You know I want to stay. I want you to stay, but you're not giving me any attention." "Oh, you know I want to stay, but you're not giving me any attention. Please just let me know. Because I thought we were going to hang out and smoke, but I feel like you just don't want anything to do with me right now." She says, "Okay." She says, "Okay," again. She says, "Okay, I'm just gonna sleep." She says, "Babe, OMG, my mom just made me so mad." So when she said, "I'm just gonna go to sleep," that was at 9:07 PM. Then she says, "Babe, OMG," at 1:30 in the morning. She says, "My mom just made me so mad." He says, "How, babe?" at 9:05 AM. She says, "Hi, babe. She put more water in my fishing, but she moved a picture. And it's a picture I only have one copy of. The one from Luis's birthday." He said, "What?" She said, "You asked why I'm mad." He said, "Oh, sorry. I texted that at 4 a.m. I don't even remember." She says, "LOL." She says, "What are you doing, babe? Are you working out?" He said, "Yeah, I'm doing a couple things, waiting to make breakfast, then work out. Then I'll probably go smoke with Chris. He's going to Columbus for a week." She says, "Oh shit. Why he going there?" He says, "Work." She says, "Okay, babe, after all of that, do you want to do something?" That works out because I have cosmetology shit to do. He says, "Yeah, what you want to do, babe?" She says, "Guess what today is?" She sends an emoji. She says, "Can we hang soon? Can we hang at 3?" He says, "Yeah, let me get them to leave. You want to go out for burgers?" She said, "Sure." "Should I dress nice?" He says, probably not. I actually didn't even shower or anything. I'm wearing 2 different socks. Maybe we should just go somewhere later." She said, "Okay, that's fine. I'll just get ready in like 10 minutes and I'll come over around 3." Not so that was on 11:14. Then it skips a day and she says, "Morning, babe," on 11:16. He says, "Good morning, babe." He says, "I love you." Oh. She says, "Do you wanna hang after Polaris?" He says, "Probably." She says, "Yay." He says, "I might slide up to Trevor's though. I didn't go last night." She said, "Aw, you can go." She says, "Pancakes?" Question mark, LOL. He says, "Maybe." He says, "Only thing is Toph is here and up." She says, "LOL, we can make hella." Well, I mean, we can just ignore him or play music. And if he starts making you mad or smoking, you can just say something. He said, "Wait a sec." She said, "When, babe?" "I want to eat with you." He says, "I'm on the phone." She says, "Okay, hit me up after, babe." She said, "I'm ready whenever." He says, "Okay." He says, "Eat some food. I'm gonna link with Trevor." She says, "Damn, okay, babe." She says, "Hit me up after." He says, "Okay." She says, "Have fun, babe." Then she says, "I work today." And he says, "When, babe?" She says, 3 to 7. He says, "You want to come chill then now?" Trevor didn't answer when I called him. He said, "What's your Cash App?" She sends her Cash App. She says, "And wait, so are you not going to Trevor's?" He says, "Nah, not anymore. He's not answering. Now all I have to do is eat, chill with Blair, link with my dude, and get a new rig." Wow. This is literally what Dom just does all day. And I don't mean to be a bitch, but sometimes I think being in this state of mind can be very can be a downer to your confidence and like how successful you feel. And I just feel like all he does is smoke with his friends all day and deal with Mackenzie. And I just think it's so bad. What does babelet mean? Your babelet. Yep, she's at Charlie's. That's funny. It's a nickname. Okay, so he says, "No, all I have to do is eat, chill with Blair, link with my dude, and get a new rig." She says, "Okay, bet I'll come now." He says, "Okay." She says, "Wait, what did you eat? I still haven't ate," said Dom. She says, "I didn't eat. I'm here." He says, "What?" He says, "I just ate some MP." She said, "Yo, do you got Nick? I need it, bro." What is that? He says, "Can you bring me more food or chocolate?" She says, "Want me to get truffles? And you need to tell me what food if you want food." He says, "Get me random chocolates and I don't know what food for real." She says, "I can get random chocolate, but tell me what food you want." He says, "I'm okay on food. My mom making food." She says, "But what she's making, I'll just get some chocolate for all of us." Dom says, "She's making steaks." She says, "Ooh, you like coconut or eggnog?" He says, "Yes to both." She says, okay, bet. He says, okay, sorry to let you down. My mom doesn't have enough potatoes, so she's doing filet tomorrow. She said, it's okay, babe. I got you some stuff. Did you have some girl cash at me? On the way, she says, okay, babe, I'm coming now. I'm about to be there. He says, it's not a girl. How much did they cash app you? She says, 140. I had a crazy dream with you in it, she says the next morning. He said, what happened? Oh, so Dom is having someone text Mackenzie his drug money, is what I think here. She says, I had a crazy dream with you in it. He says, what happened? She says, also, morning, babe, I love you. I'll tell you after school. He says, okay. He says, how is school? Mackenzie says, going good. I look really cute. He says, you always do, babe. Then they start playing word hunt. She says, please, I'm bored, babe. Did you eat all the chocolate? He says, no, I didn't eat any, I don't think. She says, oh, for real? Then she starts playing word hunt again. She says, can I come over at 2:30? She says, I can bring pulp. Babe? He says, yeah. She says, yes to all? And he said, yeah. She said, okay, bet. Well, what are you doing right now? So then he starts playing word hunt again. He says, getting a new rig. She said, wow, I can't believe this. LOL, what rig? He says, how would I know? She said, send me pics. He says, okay, I will when I'm there. She said, have fun, babe. She said, I'm a come soon. He said, okay. He said, you took both the pulps. She said, yeah, I was just about to text you. I just realized you literally texted me as I went to my phone. She said, when are you coming back? He said, I don't know. I'm still chilling at Trevor's. She said, oh, okay. Just scoop soon. He said, okay. The next morning, she says, good morning, babe, on 11/18 at 6:31. He says, good morning, babelet. I love you. And she says, oh, I love you too. She says, why are you up? She says, babe, are you up? He says, I woke up and decided to stay up and make edibles. She said, LMAO, I want to help. I don't have school today. And babe, should I not wear lashes today? He said, whatever you want to do, babe. And I'm just making the butter and stuff. She said, I'm at school right now, babe. After school, I'll come. He says, okay, babe. She says, at 10:42, she says, I'm about to leave Polaris. He says, okay, babe. She says, I love you, babe. I'm gonna come over soon. And he says, okay. She says, I don't know what to wear. Oh, okay. So this is like later in the evening. So then she says, I don't know what to wear at 9:52. She says, babe, you can't just decline the call and not even text me. I have really bad anxiety, babe. And she says, okay. He says, I'm sorry, babe. I was just doing hella stuff. I thought you'd be asleep. Then the next day at 6:31, he says, I love you, babe. Have a good day at school. She says, okay, babe, I love you. Morning, babe. I hope you slept good, she says. Babe, you didn't comment on my recent. He says, I don't know what to comment. She says, sideways face. Also, can we make eggs? She says, where are you? Question mark, question mark. Well, I'm here. I guess I'll just wait. She says, until I have school. And then she says, hi. She says, okay. He says, hey, babe. She says, what are you doing, babe? He says, cooking still. Trevor is here. She said, oh, for real, at your house? I'm getting ready for work. She says, LOL. He says, nice. He says, yeah, at my house. She says, nice job texting me, babe. So do you want to hang at 7? Babe, you never try to have convos with me. Oh, Lord. This is at 6:44 p.m. Then she says, I love you, babe, so much. I really never want to have to see you like that again. It straight up hurts my soul. I stayed with you till 11:27. I don't know what the F is wrong with my mom. She wouldn't let me stay any longer. Shake my effing head. Okay, so they went from, she said, babe, you never try to have combos with me. That was at 7:56 p.m. Then she sends that at 11:28 p.m. So something must have happened. And then she says, as soon as you're up, text me. I could dead ass cry right now. I'm so worried about you. She says, I'm really hoping you're okay right now. I love you, babe. He doesn't respond. The next morning at 8:25, she says, "Morning, babe." She says, "Please text ASAP." He says, "I'm okay, babe." She says, "Babe, thank God. I literally cried myself to sleep. You still kind of sounded weird, so please just tell me if you need anything. I'll deadass leave Polaris." He says, "No, I'm just tired." He sends a screenshot of something and he says, "I'd have to get multiple degrees." She says, "Damn, WTF, that's like extra amounts of school. There has to be another way." He says, "It would just be harder without school. Most politicians go for political science, business, and law school." She says, "Damn, I mean, you could do it if you tried, and you're really good at math, for real." He says, Political science, business, and law school." Okay, so those are some of his aspirations, you guys. Political science, business, and law school. And I think that's great. You can do it, but like, you got to stop smoking at some point, to like get through this. Oh, geez. Pulp Comes Before Fiction. That's one of my favorite movies. I just couldn't take this for one day, let alone 4 years. I know. Hi. Yeah, Sane's my babe. She's so annoying, says Brenda. Yeah, you know what? I ain't dealing with the bullshit. Wish someone scooped me right now. Work is boring. Kentarella, get your butt in here. He's gonna be a politician now. He's gonna be a politician smoking that blunt. Hey, to each their own. You know what? Anyways, let's move on. Political science, business, and law school. He says that's way too much. She says, with all that work I'd have to put in, I could just, he says, with all that work I'd have to do, I could put in, I just have to do something else and be a billionaire. She says, oh shit, I thought you only said two and true. He said, that's the plan, babe. What should I wear, babe? She says, tracksuit. He says, I'll see what I got. She says, hi, babe. What are you doing at 5:00 p.m.? She says, tomorrow I think I'm going to do some shopping. He says, we gambling. Shopping for what? Christmas. You want to shop together? Because it's November 21st. She says, yes, we can shop together. He says, okay, babe. Who we shopping for? She says, I mean, I have to get something for everyone, and I was going to shop for you. And Aerie is letting mall employees come to the mall early for Black Friday sales. They're opening early at like 10. He says, I can shop for you too. We just won't look. She says, bet. He says, LOL. You got to help me shop for my mom. She says, oh shit. True. I also need to shop for my mom. She says, can I come over? He says, maybe. Let me think something because we're all chilling. She says, I'm leaving work right now. What do you want to do? He says, what do you want to do? She says, I want to come, babe. He says, okay, come, babe. She says, yay. She sends a TikTok, 3 TikToks. He says, that looks gas. He says, what are you doing, babe? He says, babe, I thought you wanted to go shopping at 10. So is this the next day? Let me go back. Oh, no, it's the same day. So he says, what are you doing, babe? He says, babe, I thought you wanted to go shopping at 10. She says, I want to go. Let me get ready real quick. He says, okay, should I shower right now? She said, yes. She said, but he said, okay. She said, I need help. He says, what do I wear? She says, what do I wear? Jeans? LMAO. He says, LOL. She says, I was just asking you. Dom says, wear some sweats. She says, okay, I was going to dress cute. He says, I'm just going to wear something casual. She says, because I can't dress cute for school anymore. Look at Snap. He says, there's nothing on Snap. She says, babe, want me to come over? Or you want to scoop? He says, come over. He says, because I'm not dressed yet and I have a joint. She said, okay, babe, on the way. She says, I'm going to give you one. Whoa. Okay. So she says, on the way. That was at 10:28 a.m. Okay. Then at 11:24 a.m., she says, I'm going to give you one last chance to stop being dumb. Answer now or there will be an issue. It makes me so happy to know I can't even be in public with you without being all weird. Oh my gosh, I can't. This is one thing I will not deal with, you guys, so don't try to date me if you cannot hang. I don't like the whole fighting in public thing. Like, whatever they're doing in public right now, I know they're just children, they don't know that in their brains, but whatever's going on right now, it needs to stop. I'm gonna sell weed and vapes to middle schoolers so I can be a billionaire. Hey, if it was that easy, we would all be millionaires. Oh, wait. Was that earlier or did Crystal gift another 5? Did she just do that? Did Babelet just gift? Oh, she did. Thank you, Babelet, Crystal. Crystal is just gifting, and you guys better thank her before I block all of you. Just kidding. No, but really, thank her in the chat, please. Thank you, Crystal. I appreciate you. Oh my god, we have a bunch of haters here tonight. Dom was really depressed, and AF talking with his mom is always wondering if he's talking about rugs. He doesn't like PDA, and he would rather chill with his dudes. Crystal is fabulous again. Yes, she is. If your car flies to heaven, then take me with you. Wait, I want to go. Okay, how do I donate kissies? Kissies. Okay, so she says, "It makes me so happy to know I can't even be in public with you without being all weird." She says, "Answer now." He says, "F you." That might be like a personal trigger. I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like that. The gift, yeah, they are. YouTube chooses who gets gifted. Yes, thank you, Crystal. He says, "F you." He says, "I'm gonna go do my own thing." Okay, so that was on at 11:22, at 11:26 a.m., and then they hopped to the next day. So they must have made up. He says at 7 a.m. the next day, "Good morning, babe. I love you." She says, "Morning, babe. I love you. What are you doing up?" He says, "Taking a shit." She says, "I just got to Polaris." He says, "Nice. I just showered." She says, "I have to put my phone up soon." She says, "I want to cuddle. I'm putting it away now. Love you lots. I'll talk to you later." She sends an emoji. He says, "Love you, babe. I'll see you later today." And that was at 9:21. And then she says, "I'm back for a sec." He says, "LOL." He says, "Are you gone now?" She says, "Yes, kinda. I'll be in and out." He says, "Okay." She says, "I'm gonna come over after Polaris, maybe. I might have Kendra come then. I want to hang." He says, "Okay, I gotta run and do a couple things." He says, "Honestly, Kenzie, I'm really sad." Okay, here we go. Are you guys ready? Sometimes these make me feel like I'm the emotional person, and I realize that it's not me. Oh, yeah, let them haters be haters. Oh, Jamie, turn it on. Ugh, who got timed out? Who got timed out? If I timed you out, it's because you're acting out of pocket. Ah, don't question me. Let me make sure I didn't time out the wrong person. Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry, not sorry. How do you enable? You have to go to your settings, I think, and turn on receive gifted messages or gifted subscriptions or something like that. Okay, so he says, "Honestly, Kenzie, I'm really sad." She says, "Babe, what happened? I can come right to your house and wait for you. Do you want me to bring pulp?" She says, Dom says, "I don't know, to be honest. I don't know what's wrong with me." These are concerning things, you know? Like, I'm wondering if they ever said anything like this around their parents. Because to me, it's a huge red flag. He says, "I don't know what's wrong with me." He says, "Well, I do, but I don't." She says, "Well, what do you think it is, babe? Is it me?" She said. She says, I'm worried about you. He says, I think I figured it out. She said, what is it, babe? Oh my God. He says, I don't know what love is. Whoa. Okay. We need to talk. Let's have a conversation right now. Tea time. Sorry, I'm watching you. Yes, Crystal's a sweetheart. Won't get you depressed with that. What won't get you depressed and crazy with that leech nagging dude? Yeah, I know. Um, so Dom says, I don't know what love is. He says, I really thought about it. I have no idea what it is. Oh my gosh. If my boyfriend was saying something like this, okay. If this was your partner saying it, are you gonna freak out or what would your response be? Because I would be like, wait, we've been in this relationship and you say you don't know what love is, but you've been saying you love me for like how long now? He doesn't know because their love is toxic AF. I'm wondering if this was the first girlfriend he had because I know Mackenzie was in another relationship before, but I wonder about him. I'm sure he's had um I was going to say two things at once. I'm sure he's had girlfriends before, but again, they're kids, so I don't know if they really know what love is. Bet says Dom has a lot of pain. Twisted stitches. Get your butt back in here. He's a kid, doesn't know, and she doesn't know either. Yeah, I agree. That's what I was going to say too. That's a conversation for every person anyway. Yeah, I know. No, he had a girlfriend. They were brought up. I know Mackenzie had a boyfriend who said she was cray cray. Um, Kimberly says, "Oh my God, that's the only truthful thing my ex narcissist said to me. He was 17, I was 16. Humans are confused most of the time. That is true. No, I'd ask if there's something that happened in childhood first. He has dad issues, sadly," says Jessica. I can agree with what you guys are saying. He says, I have no idea what it is. And part of it is my dad's fault. Wait, what? That's crazy. I think who just said that in the chat um about his dad? Jessica did. He was looking to escape from her, but he could not figure out my personal opinion, says Brenda. The drugs are really messing Dom up big time. He's a classic addict behavior. It doesn't make him happy or even feel better, but his body depends on it to function. Yeah, I can agree with that. Both toxic, says Brenda. Alsane says he must have been a good dude then since Mackenzie said he's cray cray. Dom can be toxic and also a victim. Both can be true. Thank you, Stephanie. Yes, both can be true. Both are true. It takes two to tango. For those of you in the chat trying to say that I'm being a BATCH, he's self-medicating. I kind of feel like if he ever really wanted her gone, he could have done a lot more to keep her away. Kimberly says abandonment issues is what usually happens to a narc. I'll say I'm about to get my broom out for specific people. Jamie says for Mackenzie, it's Valentine's Day Insta photos. She's unlovable. Exactly. Brenda says, but what do you know at that age? So young. Okay, so he says it's part of my dad's fault. This is like crazy to me right now because it's like we always talk about there's parents in the situation, and this is just speaks volumes, you know, that he can recognize that there was a problem in those relationships at home where he could recognize how unhealthy it was, you know. But then again, you would think he'd realize it with Mackenzie. That's a whole different conversation. But he says it's part of my dad, and part of it is my dad's fault. Oh, he says because he was a terrible dad and a role model. Whoa. Whoa, I'm freaking out. I'm freaking out. His parents divorced when he was young. Yo, that is insane. I guess it's kind of a bigger deal to me because I actually like am really close with my dad and he's like my role model, my only role model. So I'm almost like, whoa, this is weird to me. But then again, it's, differences of life, I guess. But he says he was a terrible dad and a role model. And I didn't feel enough love by him. What? He says, and that's why I'd rather refuse and ask because I never wanted it in the first place. Whoa, this is some deep shit here, guys. Brenda says this is better than a novela. Oh my God, I'm dead. William Shakespeare could have written about them if he was still alive. Father wound. I'm reading your guys' comments. Brooms are welcome. This is wild. He says, that's why I'd rather refuse it than ask because I never wanted it in the first place. She said, Mackenzie says, babe, love is a weird thing. No one really ever understands it. I feel loved by you though. And I love you a lot. He says, I don't know. She says, babe, I might lose Wi-Fi. He says, you want to, wait, is this the next? He says, you want to go to Walmart and get Legos? I need some for Christmas. LOL. She said, yes, OMG. I love you and I do. I have someone's hotspot. She sends an attachment. He says, nice. She says, about to leave Polaris. She says, I'm back. Oops. He says, what? She says, I have no Wi-Fi in theory room. I'm back now. She said, nothing. I said, sent. He said, oh, okay. He says, I'm about to go give Logan an edible. She says, LOL, do you want me to bring pulp, babe? He says, yeah. She says, okay. She says, on the way. He said, nice. Bet. She says, babe, I'm at pulp. He says, how long till you're here? I have to leave in a sec. She said, where are you at, babe? She sends a TikTok. And another TikTok. He says, wow, I wonder who does this. And she said, LOL. Then she says an emoji. Then he sent an emoji. She said, you sounded mad. So she must have called him. She said, LOL. He said, nah, just fried. He said, get me tank tops. White ones. She says, I have like no money. I'll just take from Cash App. How much are they? She says, I might shower. He says, not much. Yeah, just use the Cash App. She says, okay, I'll go. What size? Babe, she says, what are you doing? Can I come? He says, come at like 7-ish. She said, okay, maybe sooner. He says, yeah, maybe sooner. She sent an emoji. She says, can I come at 6:58? So she must have gone over there and they hung out because the next morning he says, good morning, babe. I love you. It's really interesting, the dynamic, how we see it change so much. He used to never say I love you. And now he says it like all the time in the mornings first. She says, morning, my babe. She says, I love you. Babe, my fish is really sick. He says, really? Why is that? She says, at school. She says, love you lots. I'll talk to you soon. He says, I love you, babe. Then at 12, she says, what are you doing, babe? I love you too. She says, I might have to get my nails done again. She says, babe. Then she says, okay, ... He says, I'm driving. She says, oh. She says, makes sense. What are you doing, babe? He says, Connor. He's at Connor's. And she said, oh, how's that going? She says, I'm about to write an essay and fail, but I got 100% on my test and 88 on my other. She says, I have 2 more tests. Dom says, why are you going to fail? She says, want to hang? She says, before 4. He says, why before 4? She says, I have a nail appointment. I also need some bud, baby. He says, you can come whenever. She says, yay. He says, you want to get food? I'm hungry AF. She says, I'm going to come right now before my nail appointment. And yes, I'm hungry as F. He says, what should we get? She says, honestly, anything. What are you in the mood for? He says, can you order Chipotle and grab it on the way? She says, I've been craving Chinese. What I want, you? He says, I'll pay. She says, I can also get that. He says, for both of us, use Cash App money. She says, I love you. Text me what you want, babe. He says, I love you too. He says, get me a chicken burrito with brown rice and lettuce. She says, okay, let me order right now. He says, okay. She says, no beans. Oh, I have to sneeze. Sorry, I didn't want to sneeze in your ear. So you guys didn't get mad at me and block me because I don't want you guys to stop loving me. And then I'm going to text you guys every day and bug you. Jody Arias is way smarter and manipulative. That's true. Bless you. Thank you, Tay. Thank you, Tay. She says no beans. Just that stuff. Okay, I'm gonna order now. He says, yeah, just that stuff. She says, okay, see you soon, babe. She says, what are you doing? He says, doing this package. She says, look at Insta. Not going well. Emoji. He says, what's not going well? She said, the nail appointment. The guy doing my nail is stressing me out. He says, about what? She says, and keeps not listening. Dom says, how? She says, listening. Dom says, tell him to listen. Mackenzie says, he had to fix my nail like 30 times. I keep saying, but he does the same thing. And he sends an emoji. She says, it's for real, not funny. I almost cried. I can cry right now. Okay, why she needs to chill out. Like, you would think smoking all this weed would make her a little more chilled, but it's like the opposite for her. Melanie Lynn says, I grew up in a toxic home and had my own toxic home at 17, and at 38 have grands that live in the same. It's crazy to hear people be shocked by this. Really? Okay, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've seen some of this and I've been in a toxic relationship, but I just always think like their age. I think like it's really young. I loved Polaris years ago. I know the parties on the west side because at school the students were cool. Hmm. She says, I can cry right now. He says, are they okay? Do they look good? She says, yes, they're cute now. She says, it's okay now. He says, okay, bet. She says, I'm gonna come soon. She sends an emoji face. He says, okay, babe. She says, I think I just called Jim pissing. Oh, she says, I think I just caught Jim pissing on that bag that's on the floor. What? She says, bye, babe. I love you. I already miss you right now. He says, I love you too, babe. My babes. She said, what are you doing? He says, cleaning. She says, can I come over soon at 7? He says, yeah. She says, on the way. He said, shit. I ran to liquor store. She said, for what? LOL. I'm still at the mall right now. Oh, this was the next day. Sorry. So they went from 11:24 to 11:25. She said, I'm still at the mall right now. I'm just getting in the car. And I don't mind waiting like 10 minutes. He said, okay, we're trying to get some bougie ass shit for tomorrow. She says, ooh, my my clothes that I just changed into from are my clothes that I changed into from work still in your back seat? He said, yes. He said, oh, I haven't drove since I don't think. She says, if not, I can change into something else. When you're back at home, pull all my stuff together. On the way now, though. He says, we not in my car. You can grab your clothes. She said, okay, bet. She says, where you at? That was on 11:25. And then the next morning on 11:26, she says, morning, babe. She says, happy Thanksgiving. He says, good morning, baby. What are you doing? She says, feeding my kitties. I'm still tired. I just need to pee so bad, but now I'm like up. He said, I know I was tired AF, but I had to do shit. She says, babe, Snap. Babe, can I come over? Already having annoying. Did you leave yet, babe? Where you at? I had a really good Thanksgiving, babe. Okay, so they must have hung out. And then she says, I had a really good Thanksgiving, babe. He says, that's great, babe. I love you. She says, love you lots. He says, what are you doing now? This is like 1 a.m. She says, trying to sleep. He says, nice. He says, we chill tomorrow. She says, at 8:15. She says, morning, my babe. Also, I need bud. And do you know why it burns when I hit my bong? She says, babe, want to hang? He says, yes, babe. She says, I work at 2. She says, can you tell Mackenzie I'm here? I forgot my watch and I'm using her watch. LOL. Going on break at 4:30. What? He says, I don't know if I can be there. I'm about to shower. Wait, what the hell? Let me go back. I'm like, am I high? So at 11:27, I don't know what that was about. And then at 3:16, she says, going on break at 4:30. He says, I don't know if I can be there. I'm about to shower. She says, try. He says, okay. She says, please. He says, to be honest, I won't make it. I'm not even dressed. He says, what should I wear, babe? He says, black jeans or sweatpants. She says, jeans. And come, please, babe. He says, okay. She says, like, I can come on break till like 7. I can come on break till 7 or like 6, but I don't know. 5:30. I'm going to break at 5:30. 5:30, come. He says, okay, I can probably make that. He says, right now, me and Angela going to, I don't know what that is. Halables. She says, oh, what are you getting? New coil? She says, please come at 5:30. He says, I don't know exactly. He says, okay. She says, I clock out at 5:30, baby. He says, okay. He said, dabs or weed? She said, dabs. Make sure you're here before 5:30. He says, okay. He says, I don't know if I'll make it. Just about to leave the lobbies. He said, there's hella people here. She said, oh, how's the sales? When you come here, just come to Maylee's. He says, okay. She says, where you at? He says, almost home. She says, oh, you're not going to make it? She says, I'm going on break literally now. My stomach hurts so bad. He says, want me to bring you something when I come? She says, I'm eating pizza right now, but it hurts. Bad AF. He questions it. She says, sure. He says, pizza sounds good too. She says, like an apple or something. Bernie gave me a free pizza and water. He says, LOL, an apple? She says, I feel like an apple is what would make my stomach feel better. That's interesting. Next time I have a stomach ache, I'm going to eat an apple. I want to come tell you guys if it works. More nail dilemmas. Herbie? I'm about to roll me a backwood. Oh, well, you missed some trolls Christmas shopping and Michelle. Oh my God, you guys crack me up. Just trolls. I'm used to it. Hey, Ash. Ash girl. Oh, okay, Melly. Yeah. She's an interesting creature. I don't know, you guys. So next time you have a stomach ache, let me know if the apple works too. I haven't tried that, but I will try that. I feel like an apple is what would make my stomach feel better. This cheese is probably not helping. He says, yeah, I got you, babe. He says, I will bring you that. She says, a nice red one. I have to go back. Okay, yeah. So she said an apple. She wants a nice red apple. She says, a nice red one. When are you coming? He says, okay. He says, I don't know. She says, I'm about to be off my break. He says, can I wait till Sheen comes over so I can come with him? She said, yes. I'm like cold, but warm. She says, I'm also shaking. He says, oh, I'm so sorry. My poor babe. She says, I really just feel shitty AF. This shit sucks. He says, look up shit on the internet that can help. She says, you look, I have to clock back in right now. I might leave because I feel like shit. He says, if you want to. It's only 3 more hours though, babe. You can do it. She says, I don't know. I know I'm trying so hard. She says, "Are you coming?" He says, "Yeah, I'll come soon. Let me smoke this wood." She says, sideways face. "I love getting put last." He says, "If I put you last, I just wouldn't have came. Actually, I don't even feel like I'm coming at all. I don't want to, but I come for you." She says, "I mean, if you don't really want to, you don't have to. It's just really nice to see you." He says, "Okay, babe." She says, "I was expecting you to come, so just makes me sad when you say you don't want to come." He says, "Well, I was going to come, but I have no reason to come now." She said, "Okay, thanks, babe. I love getting excited for nothing." She says, "Okay, cool." He says, "What?" She says, "LOL. You don't even know." "Never mind, Dom. Go smoke all the weed and hang with Sheen." He says, "Okay, babe." Dom says, "I'm sorry, babe. I didn't know it meant that much for me to come. Let me make it up to you, though." He says, "Babe." She says, "Hi, babe." This is at 9 o'clock at night. He says, "Are you okay?" She says, what you want?" She says, "Babe." He says, "Side of filet, side of rice, side of vegetables." She says, "Bet." He said, "Bet. We can share veggies, babe." She says, "Okay, babe, bet." Then she says, "Babe." She says, "Your mom turned the lights off." He says, "LOL, I'll come back." Dom says, "It smells so bad in here." Mackenzie says, "LOL, you see the cat piss?" He says, "Yeah, it smells so bad." She says, "It's hella too. Nothing was even there. So I wonder why Jim chose there." Question mark, question mark. He said, "What?" She said, "Where did you go?" I said, "Okay, ignore me." And then I left and you just walked away. He says, "Shower downstairs. Come, babe." "Sorry, I didn't go to Jared's. I had to text him. He had a Thanksgiving thing. I feel bad I wasn't there." Mackenzie says, "Well, you didn't even tell me about that." He says, "Come down here and talk to me about it." She says, "I don't think you want to do this." Wait, wait, wait. So he says, "Come down here and talk to me." That was on 11/28 at 5:32 p.m. Then the next day, well, at almost 1 in the morning, she says, "I don't think you want to do this." Dead ass. I don't know who the F this Dom is and where the disrespectful is coming from. And it's disgusting. I I love thinking I'm going to have a fun ass night with you, then you just ruin it for no reason. You don't give an F about anything I say or care about. Why the F are you acting like this? It literally makes me grossed out hella. Okay, so you see like how we went from Thanksgiving and like cuddling and cat piss, and then they go to fighting. I'm a doggy daddy. Hey, daddy. Disgusting, says Mallory. Oh God, here it goes. Hey, midnight. Um, apples, apples in prison. You know what she's doing with them apples in prison? She be trying to smoke that weed in there. Mallory's like, "What now?" Okay, so she says, "Why the F are you acting like this? It's literally making me grossed out hella." He says, "Okay." She says, "Maybe you should stop drinking." Not her calling him out on his shit. Who's drinking too much? Wow. And cat piss. Cat piss and arguments. Yo, no. She says, "Maybe you should stop drinking. If you're going to turn into a dick when you drink." That's what she said, not me. The fact that you just left me crying, the fact that you just left me crying for me thinking now, I'll remember this night forever. He says, "Wow." She says, "You just effed up, but it's okay. You get a night with the bros. Now I know you can leave me when I'm at a weak point. You say you care, but this doesn't feel like it." Dom says, "You've been terrible to me, okay?" What the hell? Like, what the actual hell? I cannot weren't they just, like, sorta somewhat okay, and now he's like, "You've been terrible to me." Oh my god. Cat piss and arguments should be the name of her autobiography. I guess it's gonna be mine. What if my wife doesn't have a sister? What? D-Box is like nasty. He says, "You've been terrible to me, okay?" He says, "Go home. I'm gonna hit a dab and go to bed. I'll see you Monday or something." She says, "All I do is be there for you." This is at 1:20 in the morning. She said, "See?" Like question, and then he says, question mark, question mark. She says, "Then I get yelled at and blamed. You can't even look at me. You're willing to let me go home sad AF." And Dom says, "I get yelled at and blamed." She says, "I could never let you go home sad, but it's easy for you." He says, "Sure." She says, "And I never yelled at you." He says, "You leave me raging mad all the time." He says, "Okay, I don't care. I'm done. Stop talking to me." She says, "Dom, that's what you want me to do. When you're mad, I leave you alone. Like, do you not want me to do that?" He says, "I'm so mad now." She says, "Why?" He says, "Now I'm going to be pissed off the rest of the night." He says, Mackenzie says, "This shouldn't make you mad, Dom." She says, like, "Be mature." He says, "Okay." She says, "And don't think I'm trying to stay. I'm waiting to leave. I can't just leave looking like I just cried for 40 minutes. He says, "Okay." She says, "You can come try to talk it out, but I doubt you even want to try. But just know leaving me like this will not help anything." He says, "I don't care. Stupid fight anyways." She said, "What? So you're not going to come fix it?" I don't know what that text means. He says, "Go home." She says, "WTF?" She said, "Did you not read what I just said?" She emphasizes it. He says, "Go home again." She says, don't, she resends the same message. "Don't think I'm just trying to stay. I'm waiting to leave. I can't just leave looking like I cried 40 minutes. She says, "Dom, if you keep talking to me like this fight is about to get a lot worse." He says, "Okay." She says, "You don't give an F. Okay, you want to go there, Dom? You really want to have to do this? You're really going to be like that?" He says, "Are you really going to be like that?" She says, "Like for real?" He says, question mark, question mark, question mark. She says, you think I'm talking to be with, you think talking to me with straight disrespect will help you? Or you make me want to forget about this? Huh? He says, "Go home." She says, "Can you read? You are rude." He says, "Go home." She said, "As F." He said, "Go," exclamation mark. And she says, "Dom, if you say one more thing, I'm telling your mom." He says, "Okay." She says, "I'm not letting you just disrespect me." He says, "Okay." She says, "Dom, OMFG." He says, "Phone on one. Be nice or go home." Okay, wait. Why does she constantly threaten him with his mom? Like, there's something else there. The way she makes me Mallory's raging. Um, like, what is she? There's something I think going on between the mom and Dom and Mackenzie here, because every time she threatens him, and so I wonder, like, if there's something she doesn't know about Dom, if she's hiding something for Dom, Mackenzie, and is gonna tell his mom, why does she always threaten him with that? It's really, really weird. "I'm telling your mom." What part of "go home" does she not understand? Says Yvonne. Apparently, the whole thing. He says, "Or go home." And Mackenzie says, "You're about to cause a big issue," she said. And Dom says, "Okay." She says, "Why the F won't you stop talking to me like that?" He says, "Be nice, babe." She says, "Like, you just let me cry. I haven't cried like that in so long. And you just left." He says, "Okay." She says, "Are you serious?" In caps. He said, "Are you serious?" She says, "You didn't just say that again. After I said it, it's rude. And what I said just about me being sad, now I know you don't care. The fact that you could do that to me after all I just said says it all. Thanks for showing me who you are or how you really feel." And he says, "Okay." She says, Oh my God. I can't believe this. So you don't care? How do you expect me to be able to leave if I know what you're saying hurts? That's all you're doing and you know it. That's what you're trying to do to me. She has a bunch of typos. He says no. She says no. You know what you're doing to me. You're hiding somewhere. Texting me shit you know hurts. You can't even face me. If you don't come fix this, we will have issues. And honestly, after tonight, we might already have them because how you talk to me is not okay. And how you still did it after I told you it hurt, or how I tell you I'm at a low point and you ignore everything and just say, okay. Dom, what you're doing is seriously so effed up. You're making this relationship very one sided. Dom, you're really effing everything up right now. I'm literally sitting here wasting sleep time. He says, I threw up bad. She says, OMG, where are you? Are you okay, babe? What happened? He says, it was really gross. I still taste it. She says, were you effed? And did you puke in your room? He says, no, bathroom. He said it was a chicken dip. It was so thick coming up out my nose and shit. She's, ew. She said, oh, well, at least you made it to the bathroom. She says, aw, emoji face. He says, I couldn't breathe. It was so gross. Ew. She says, I feel bad AF. That probably was the worst. Did you eat too much? He said, no. Probably just mix of alcohol and buffalo dip. Not a good combo. She says, oh, I didn't even think of it like that. That had to suck bad AF though. I hate puking. He says, yeah, it's gross. So he was drinking clearly. She says, sorry, babe. At least it's over now. He sends Looney Tunes emoji. She says, at work. She says, love you, babe. He says, love you, babe. Have a good day at work. She says, it's slow so far. He says, probably because it's Sunday. She says, hey, babe. He says, what's up? An hour later. She says, I'm bored and hungry. He says, I'm tired AF. She said, answer. Snap. He said, okay. She says, I gave my homie from work your number for Bud. Dom said, who is it? She said, Ray. She's chill AF. New fave coworker. And that was on 11/29. And then she says the next morning, morning, babe. He says, good morning, babe. What are you doing? She says, getting ready for school. I miss you. She says, I have remote every day now. I'm so sad. He said, what's that? She said, school. School online every day. He said, oh, that means you can chill more. She says, so gay. Yeah, but I think I have to really focus on class so I pass. So I'm gonna have to bring a computer to your house. He says, so online for Polaris and school every day. She says, just high school. Polaris, I will go. He says, oh, okay. He says, so you about to go to Polaris? She says, yeah, sad face. He says, I'll see you soon though. She says, I'm sad. I miss you, babe. He says, it's only a couple hours, then you can come cuddle. And she says, yay, I'm coming over soon. He says, okay, babe. That was on 11:30. Then she says, morning, babe, let's go sledding or make a snowman today. She says, babe, it's effed outside. He doesn't respond. And she says, babe. He says, babe, I don't know. I have boots or snow pants or anything. She says, I'm looking still. He says, okay, let me know. She says, I found mine, but there's a shoe we're still looking for. And he says, what? She said, question mark, question mark. She says, babe. He says, it will snow all winter. I'm not going out for boots. She says, did that make you mad? I'm just trying to have fun in the snow with you. He says, I'm not trying to spend all day looking for boots and pants. She says, it won't be all day, babe. He says, and I'm not driving anywhere right now. She says, I can't even go. He says, I won't be able to get out. She says, well, want me to get you some boots? I really want to play in the snow with you. He says, whatever you want to do. She says, do you need gloves? And what if the ones I get don't fit? He says, I don't know. She says, well, I'll go get you a pair, but I can't pay for them. My mom has no money right now, babe. If they don't fit perfect, please don't be mad at me. He says, just forget it. She says, forget what? He said, the boots. She said, then how are we going to go in the snow? Sad face. He says, bruh, I don't know. Do whatever you want to do. She says, babe, I just want to have fun with you. Why are you getting mad? He says, I have no idea. She says, so are you done trying to have snow time with me? She says, I want to come over and play in the snow. He says, look, go get boots or whatever, use the cash up money and I'll just chill here. She says, okay, I'll get you some, babe. Then we can have fun and just relax for a little. I love you, babe. He says, okay, babe. She says, 10 and a half or 11. He says, 11 probably. She says, okay, I'm going to come over. He says, nah, go home. I don't want to get mad. Wait, what? He says, nah, just go home. I don't want to get mad. Oh my God. She hasn't mentioned being fired again. Oh, thank you, Kiki. Kiki says, I want all the kissies. Kiki wants all the kissies. Kissies for Kiki. Thank you, Kiki. I appreciate you for the super chat, helping the channel grow. Kiki gets all the kissies tonight. Dom's mom even laughed at Kenzie saying Dom wanted to end his life. She literally typed LOL. He wouldn't say that. It really harmed him. They didn't take her serious. He says, nah, go home. I don't want to get mad. She says, oh. He says, you can come whenever. My bad. What the hell? He says, I don't know what was going on with me. I was just really mad for a while. Okay, you guys, let's backtrack a little. We need to realize the times here. He says, nah, go home. I don't want to get mad. That's at 12:27 p.m. in the daytime. She says, oh, at 1:06. So less than an hour later, he says, you can come over whenever. My bad. And then he says, I don't know what was going on with me. I was just really mad for a while. She says, it's okay, babe. I love you. He says, I love you too, babe. I always want the best for you. Sorry, I can't be good enough. What the hell? Okay, we know he's not drunk. Is he on something? Like, what is up with this? This isn't freaking normal. I don't care if anyone in the chats comes for me or in the comments. Like, what the is going on? Like, it literally, these moments of like realization, I'm like, I'm glad you're having them. It's growth, you're realizing. But then I'm like, it happens like every 3 days. I'll say you're in trouble, you get a spanky. It's hard to handle him, says Jamie. He has these periods of anger, says Midnight. It's like outrageous. I think he hates snuff. He says, sorry, I can't be good enough. She says, I want the best for you too, babe. I don't want you to be sad. You're good enough, my babe. You're really the best. I'm gonna come over and we can make a snowman. LOL. He says, okay. She says, hi, babe. He says, hi, babe. This is a couple hours later. She says, what are you doing? I miss you. He says, just trying to, just chilling, trying to figure out what to eat. My mom's making dinner, but I don't know. That's going to be, there's a typo. She says, babe, eat. Just get Chick-fil-A. It's really bad out though. He says, no, by the time I get anything, it will be done. The only thing I'd leave for is dabs. LOL. She says, LOL, true and damn, just use my dabs, babe. He says, I scraped up a dab. She says, good, babe, you deserved one. He says, now the rosin jar is completely empty. She says, you need to get more. He says, I know, I'm going to. She says, bet. I can still come back, right? He says, when? She says, 8. He says, I don't know. She says, ... Should have known this would happen. He says, you can come. She says, okay, I'll see you at babe. Might just leave. Okay, so that was at 9. Oh, okay. So wait. I'll see you, babe. That was at 7:36. And then at 9:51, she says, might just leave. Feels like you're not wanting anything to do with me. She says, okay, alone in the room right now. He says, I've just been watching TV. What do you even want to do? Dude, what the hell? I'm sorry. That's awkward. If my boyfriend's inviting me over and he's not hanging out, like, what the hell? I hate that. How You know what? It seems like I know we're all dizzy. Hey, hello. Good to see you, love. It's like when they're separated, he gives her attention. He's like, "I love you. I wanna hang out with you. Like, I'll see you." And then they hang out and he, like, wants nothing to do with her. Do you guys notice that? He, like, doesn't hang out with her. She's, like, in the other room. They're fighting, breaking glass, breaking bongs, breaking rigs. She's outside in the garage, in the room. He's out with his mom. Like, it's the weirdest freaking thing. He says, "I've just been watching TV. What do you even want to do?" And she says, "I just wanna lay on you, but you really don't want me to do that." He says, "Babe, you've been laying on me for an hour. I had to go take a shit. You wanna hit the wood when I'm out?" She says, "Babe." He says, "Babe." She says, "Where?" "I had to leave in a second." He says, "Oh, really? I'll come." She says, "Babe, I can't find the gray lighters I made you." Dom says, "Babe." She says, "So I'm gonna make you more. I'm really upset about it." He says, "What, the one you brought with you?" She said, "Yes." He said, "It's okay. They're gonna run out eventually." She says, "I know, but still, I'm so sad right now." She says, "I have hella anxiety, babe. I'm sorry." He says, "It's okay, babe. I don't care. We still have the others." She says, "Morning, babe." This is the next day. He says, "Good morning, babe." She says, "What are you doing, babe?" She says, "I feel so gross right now." LMAO. He says, "I'm just in bed trying to figure out what I can get done today." She says, "What are you doing? I'll help you." He says, "I don't know. That's why I'm trying to figure out." And she says, "Want to cook something?" She says, "Coming now." He says, "Bet." He says, "Right on time." She says, "Bet." Emoji face. Emoji. He says, "I don't know what the last one is." She said, "Okay, so then that ends there at 10 in the morning." The next day, she says, "Hi, babe," at 7-Eleven on 12/3. She says, "Morning, my babe." He says, "Good morning, babe." She says, "Good." He says, "Good morning, babe. What are you doing?" She says, "I love you so much, babe." He says, "I love you too, babe." She sends a TikTok, 2 TikToks. She says, "I don't know why you never come after me." Wait, what the hell? Let's go back. Their moods fluctuate in these fights. Lord, I can't even keep up. So he says, "I love you too, babe," at 9:57 AM. And then she sends TikToks. Then at 1:16, so like an hour and 15 minutes later. Am I doing math right? Who cares? But you get it. She says, "I don't know why you never come after me." He says, "'Cause I don't wanna go out there with Toph and Ashley. I hate them." And Mackenzie says, "The girl isn't even out here." Dom says, "That's even worse." She says, "Yep, saying anything to not come after me." Like, question mark, question mark, question mark. Then you say you let me chill, then talk to yourself while in there, right? I mean, like, and Dom says, "Dude, I'ma literally freak out. You live in this little perfect world with barely any problems, and all I have is this shit going on, and you just want to stress me out to the point where I want to kill people." OMG. He's like, "You live in this little perfect world, Kenzie." He's like, "Shut up." Oh my goodness. It seems like they hate their whole friend group. And then he says, like, "F off, Kenzie. You don't know what the F is going on. I got a lot of things to worry about, okay? I'm really effing mad at my mom." And Mackenzie says, "Wow. First of all, I don't know why you don't tell me shit. And then when I'm sad, you tell me." Like 5 question marks, 7 exclamation marks. Dom says, "Maybe because I was busy trying to plan my day." And Mackenzie says, "Dom, who cares? I could be a millionaire and still have issues." Dom says, "That's not it. You're not even a millionaire and you barely have shit to worry about." And Mackenzie says, "I cannot have shit to worry about and still have issues. Like, why can't you understand that?" Like, you don't downgrade my shit. If you have issues and you want to talk about them, you can. But you always tell me in the middle of an argument. You never tell me anything wrong. Anything is wrong. And now I have to effing leave soon. Like, answer. I hate leaving you like this. Or leave me on red, she says. Like, that literally makes me feel better. And he says, my back hurts. She said, so that's why you're leaving me on red? Makes zero sense. LOL. He says, cool. She says, why are you being mean? Whatever, Dom. You really being petty for no reason. He says, okay, I'm sorry. She said, okay. I'm off at 8. He said, okay. She said, that's all you're going to say? Whatever. Dry as F. Oh my God, I hate when she says that. She said, you're really going to leave me on red? Dry AF. And then it ends there. Okay, wait, we're going to end there for tonight. Let me write down this page. Okay, so tomorrow, we're so close to finishing this year. So we'll leave it at there tonight. We're already 2 hours in. Tomorrow, we will finish 2020 and move on. We're almost there. Oh, what did I miss? Did I miss something? Let me go back. Sounds like he has major depressive disorder with major outbursts. Yeah, I know. His problems aren't money related. Even if he was rich, untreated mental problems won't go away. Oh my gosh, Tay. This is so true. It's like you can have all the money, but if you don't deal with your issues or take care of yourself, is it really even happiness? Dry AF. I never want to hear that terminology again. I just don't. Dry AF, like you're dry. I'm going to text one of my friends tonight and use that terminology and see what they say. I'm really curious. They're going to be like, they're going to probably be like, who took Melly's phone? Because that doesn't even sound like me. So they're probably going to be like, they're probably going to call police and be like, who stole her iPhone? Because that's not even some shit I would say. But anyway, page number. Yes, I wrote it down, my babelets. We are almost through 2020. We're going to do it. Yes, we have a Melly After Dark after this. We're going to be reviewing the Karen Reed case. So I would go longer. You dead dry. Most of my families are wealthy and all they do is complain with marriage issues. You know what? I'm good. I just want to be happy and healthy. And that's it. Okay, so I have another live scheduled after this. Hop on over there. Let's hang out for a little Melly After Dark. Thank you so much for being here. Make sure you hit the like button. I had already scheduled part 18 tonight. I'll schedule it after this so we can finish the year off tomorrow and we're going into 2021 and we're doing it. We're going through all of them. It's taking us a minute, but we will get there. We will get there. Thank you. Exactly, Yvonne. How can you love someone if you can't love yourself? And this is so true. My battery is at 1%. You better charge that before I come to your house, Rebecca, and stand outside your garage and pound on that garage door. Break it down until you come out and get in here. Just kidding. Love you, Melly. Thank you. Good job, Melly. You the best. Thank you, babelets. See you on the next live. And tomorrow we'll be back with more Mackenzie texts. I love you. Make sure you hit the like button on the way out. Bye, my babelets. I will catch you on the next one. Bye.